Hey guys, one of the things I love to share with people are resources that anyone can use. And by that, I mean you're not limited if you own a Mac or a PC or a particular type of camera or equipment. And one of the things that people often ask me is how to edit photos. And I personally use a lot of different resources like Photoshop and Lightroom. And those can be a little expensive. And if you're not ready to jump into that, although they are premium and great editing tools for photographs. If you're not ready to do that right now and you just want some simple edits on some of the photos you've taken, that's what I'm going to show you today. All right. So we're going to show you a tool that you should be able to use on your computer. And we're going to go from, let's go ahead and take a look at the image here. We're going to go from this tiger here, who I captured at the, it used to be called the Wild Animal Park. Now it's called the San Diego Safari Park. And we're going to go from a picture that looks like this to a picture that looks a little different, looks like this. Okay. So just look at the differences. First of all, I obviously cropped it, so you're going to learn how to do that today. And the other thing is I brought up some of the colors without going overly saturated and crazy. And some of the contrast I changed as well as a slight vignette on it. So you can take a picture, which looks pretty good. And you know, when you're taking pictures, sometimes you don't have the ability to compose it the way you do. This picture is a little crooked, and so I'm going to straighten it up a little bit. And then I also don't like the particular placement of where the tiger is in the frame, and so something like this is a little more appealing. And again, this is something that most people should be able to do. So we're going to go over to a place called Pixlr. And here's how you get there. It's Pixlr. Whoa, too big. Pixlr.com, Pixlr.com. And it's a free resource, which is really cool. You don't even have to sign up. I mean, you can, and you get some benefits from signing up. To Pixlr.com, like you can store your photos on there and stuff. But if you just use it to edit your photos and then put them back on your computer edited, then you can share them with family, friends, Facebook, whatever. It's a pretty good resource. The other thing is Pixlr also makes other things as well. They make apps for both iOS and Android. You should go check them out. There's links over at Pixlr. You can take a look. But what you want to do is go right here to where it says Pixlr Editor. Okay, click on that. And then you're going to get something like this on your screen. Then I'm going to click the second one down here where it says Open Image from Computer. And then I am going to go find my unedited tiger image right there. Boop. And there it is. Okay. So one of the first things I want to do is straighten this thing, because it might not be apparent right away, but if you look at this pole, that, to me, you know, if I did all my edits and then cropped it and then saved it out and then I realized the pole's crooked, it kind of bugs me. It takes away from the picture. So one of the first things I'm going to do is straighten it. So I'm going to go over to Edit, and then I'm going to go over to Free Transform, which is right there. And now you've got these little handles on the side, and you want to make sure that what you do is get that little cursor to turn into like a circular arrow. Okay, so notice how it changes depending on where you are. Well, once you get it to turn into a circular arrow, now you can just rotate it without changing anything else. And Pixlr is a great tool. It's a good tool. There are certain things it's missing, and one of them is guidelines. But I'm just going to use my eyeball and just take a guess, and I think it's maybe like that. That might be straight. So I'm going to let go. And then to lock it in, you hit the return key on your keyboard, and that locks it in. And you'll notice now you've got this sort of white space over here, and there's probably white space down here. So you're definitely going to have to crop it now. And so that's where you're going to use this tool. It's called the crop tool. And then once you click on that tool, you have to make a couple of choices. No restriction is the default, but that's exactly what it sounds like. You can do anything, which is not bad particularly, because now what I could do is I could say, okay, I want the tiger to be in this sort of like long rectangular low square thing, sort of like really landscape, and I just like the look of that. Maybe there are components in it that you really like, and you don't care about anything else. Maybe the only place you're going to publish to is the web, and that aspect may be great for that or whatever. And I'm noticing right now my pole is still not straight, so I'm probably going to free transform it a little bit more, but that's how that goes. But when we get back to this, you will see, I'm going to hit the escape key to get out. And let me do that free transform just a little bit more because I think it's still crooked. Okay, let's see. Edit, free transform. Go a little bit further, curly, and let's see. Maybe I got it that time. We'll see. Which is pretty cool because you see it's not quite right yet. You can transform a little. Once you crop it, though, then you're going to have edges, and you don't want to do it after cropping. Let's take a look to see if my edges are straight. And that's one way I could do it. Let's just take a look at that square. Pretty close. Good enough. Good enough. Okay, so now I have this thing on here. I'm going to hit escape to get out. And I don't want to have no restriction. I want to actually have an aspect ratio. This other one, output size, is if you want exactly, you know exactly what pixels you want to put out. Maybe you're doing a web project or something, you know exactly how many pixels you want. But in general, you probably want aspect ratio. And in these two places right here, if you look up, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit, the width and the height, you're going to want to put in constrained aspect ratios, the things that you're probably familiar with. For instance, if you want the width to be 4 and you want the height to be 6, then that right now, see now it's constrained, and if I grab a no, I don't want to apply to changes yet. Okay, let's try that again. So if you grab a handler here and you try to move it around, you can't change the aspect ratio. It's always going to be a 4:6 aspect ratio or 2:3, same thing, right? Well, the reason you might want this is because you might want to print it up at your favorite print lab or whatever, and you know it's going to be a 4:6. All right. So that's all you do. Again, you escape to get out if you're not ready to crop yet. But let's say this time I'm going to do an 8:10. Another very common aspect ratio. And now I'm going to start my crop. And it doesn't have to be perfect right away, because look what you can do. You can move it around. You can change the size of it by grabbing one of the blue squares, and it won't change the aspect. It's going to stay at an 8:10 aspect ratio or a 4:5, right? So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to sort of crop it towards pretty tight in, because I want to get rid of all the distracting stuff on the outside. And I'm going to put that tiger's eye right there. It's on the rule of thirds, one of the crop lines. And yeah, I like that. So now I'm going to hit return on the keyboard. And now I've got my my crop ratio right. If you look over here, see, that bugs me. It's still a little tilted. And if I really wanted to do this right, I'd probably reverse back out and adjust it a little bit more. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit, because I want it a little bit so I can see more. And you can always view and zoom in, or you can zoom out, right? Okay, one of the first things I'm going to do is change some of the aspects of the image in adjustments. Now, there are many things here you can change, and one of the things that people typically change first is the exposure. But let me show you why that may not be always the best idea. Exposure, as you can see, it just made the tiger a little brighter. Exposure changes the entire image exposure, which if the entire thing is darker, you might be able to pull out a little bit more of the detail and brightness, but realize there is a limit. I mean, if you took a picture in a really dark room and you crank this guy really up far, you still may not be able to pull out the image, the detail in that image, because there's just not information there. But you can try, and that's not a bad thing to do. But you'll notice that the slider basically can make maybe a picture that's overall too bright, darker, or overall too dark, lighter. But I'm not going to use that, and here's why. If you notice, there are certain spots on here where the tiger is actually properly exposed, and over here it's a little dark, and maybe some of that wood back there. So I'm going to use something that I love to use all the time, and under adjustments, instead of the exposure, I'm going to go to curves. And check this out. It's not hard to learn. If you want, so this side over here, the curve, let me zoom in a little bit. This side over here of the curves, on this side from about here to halfway over, on this side is the dark stuff. And everything on this side of this line or curve, or on that area, is the light stuff. So if I grab any part of this line right here before that halfway point and move it in a certain direction, it will alter the dark stuff. So watch, check this out. So I'm going to grab right about here, and I'm going to start moving that part of this line up, and it's going to actually kind of curve the line up. But watch what happens to the tiger at the same time. So I'm going to move that part up, and notice it starts to brighten up, especially in particular the shadows. But notice that the right side is kind of brightening up too much as well. Well, that's because the curve, it lifted that up there. So what you can do is just grab part of this curve right here and bring it down. So now you have more of a sort of a balanced image. The light parts didn't get blown out and get too light, and the dark parts are brought up to be a little lighter. So, you know, this is to taste. People like to have it look different ways. So I'm just going to mess around until I get, I think I want a little bit of darkness and shadow. And then over here, I might bring, let's see if I can get some decent contrast here. Yeah, I kind of like that. Maybe I'm going to bring up the midtones. So this is the middle. I'm going to bring up the midtones, but I don't want that super bright stuff to get blown out. So I'm going to grab this. I'm going to bring it down just enough. Play with it. I know it looked like what I did is just really complicated, but all you need to know is the stuff over here is dark. These are the midtones, and then over here is the bright stuff. So if the bright stuff gets too bright, bring it down a little bit. If the midtones are a little too dark, bring them up a little bit. And if you like the dark stuff, bring it up to bring it lighter, or, you know, bring it down if you like that contrast. It just depends on the mood of the picture, right? I mean, if it's a bright, airy, fun picture, you might want to have it look a very different way than if you had like a sort of gloomy, dark picture, you know. So I'm going to hit OK, and it kind of locks that in. Let's see if there's anything else in adjustments. Oh, yeah. So I like to add just a little bit of contrast on my pictures, because sometimes they start a little flat. You can get a little too excessive with this, so watch it, because if you go contrasty, too contrasty, it's scary. So and then you can go the other way too and make it desaturated, or not very contrasty. But in general, so if you're at 0, that's where it started, and then I'm going to move it just a little bit up, maybe there for this particular picture, just to make it a little contrasty. I'll say okay. You can also adjust the brightness here a little bit. I might do that just a tad. And fine adjustments are really what you want to strive for. A lot of people make these really coarse adjustments, and they make things look like blown out, and it's a little over-exaggerated, so you don't want to do that. Okay, so let's see, we've got adjustments, hue saturation. All right, this is another place where you can go crazy. Sometimes your picture may seem a little flat, might have been light that day, and you can overdo it very easily with a saturation slider. If you slide it, look what happens. The greens go crazy. I mean, if you're looking for the sort of exaggerated cartoony look, you can, but most people just want sort of a subtle amount of color pop, just a little bit. You want to take a look, especially at plants and other things that people know what the colors should be. You might not want to exaggerate that too much. In particular, if you have people and you've got skin tones in there, you got to be really careful, because everybody knows what people are supposed to look like. Sometimes you can take an image of something like an insect or a flower, or in the case of this tiger, I might be able to increase the orange saturation just a little bit more, because people don't see it every day. And then when you increase it a little bit more, it causes a bit more of a dramatic effect. But I'm going to keep that pretty low. I'll hit OK. The other thing I'm going to touch is the color vibrance. And you can actually move this a bit without affecting it too much, but it just adds a little bit more of a pop. But again, use your eyes, take a look to see what you think is right. And I'm just going to move this to be, or maybe right about there. Let's see if there's anything else under that. No, we talked about just about everything. I mean, there's so many things that you can touch, but right now I'm giving you the basics. The other one is under filter. All right, there is something called sharpen, but let me show you. It doesn't give you any options. When you hit sharpen, it just boom, it sharpens. So it's not like you had a lot of choice or say. So I'm going to hit Command Z to go back, and instead I'm going to go to Filter, Unsharp Mask, and here is where I've got a lot more control. I would say don't really make any adjustments on the radius or threshold. Just leave them sort of low like this, around 2 and 10. And then over here is really where you want to pay attention to. Again, not coarse adjustments. If I put it to 0, it's back to where it was before. Let me go ridiculous over here. I've seen people turn out pictures like this and then post them that are obviously over sharpened. And again, it's a stylized look. If you're looking for that, that's how you do it. But if you just want a picture to stand out, by the way, this will not sharpen a blurry image that is blurry because your camera was shaking. Maybe you're scared the tiger's going to eat you or something like that, or a little too much caffeine that day. But if it's already blurry or is out of focus, then this will not fix it, okay? Because you can't sharpen that. But what it will do is give you just a little bit of an edge over a picture that was pretty sharp and make those edges and things stand out. So you're going to have to determine on your particular picture. Sometimes if the picture has a lot of detail in it, like grass and leaves and things like that, you can over sharpen a little too quickly. When it's a smooth object, you can sharpen a little bit more. So I'm going to sharpen to taste. I think in this particular one, I'm going to just leave it there. And it looks pretty good for this thing. So I'll hit OK. See if there's anything else. I wish that I could have more control over this, but the denoise brings down some of the noise. Again, in more sophisticated programs, you do have control over how much you change that. But on here, it's just denoise, and you click it, and then it removes some of the noise and kind of smooths out some of the color variations within it. So go ahead and use that. Let's see if there's anything else. By the way, there's tons of things. Please go explore. I mean, that's the best way to learn. You can always Command Z and undo something and get back to where you were. And this is going to save out. It's not affecting your actual picture, by the way. It's going to save out as a copy outside. So let's see. Oh, the other thing I wanted to show you was this vignette. I like to put a subtle vignette, and again, on this particular program, you don't have certain controls that I like to have when I vignette pictures, but a vignette puts like a nice soft vignette, darker area or a lighter area around sort of the periphery of it. So I'm going to hit vignette. And you'll see it's way overdone. Okay, so right here, especially on the light areas, it's way overdone. It looks like I'm looking through a telescope or something. And if that's the look you're looking for, then that's okay. But if it's not, drop that. I always drop the vignette down to 0, so it's not there. Even here, look at that. Even with a vignette of 1, I've still got a little bit of shade there. So you got to be aware of that. If it wasn't for that area, I might be able to vignette a little more because it's kind of a cool effect. But I'm going to vignette it till it looks like okay for me. Let's see, maybe somewhere there. You kind of got to let go. You know, again, it's to taste. And today, I think I'm going to leave it like that. Just a real subtle vignette, but it is still there, okay? Oh, by the way, if you click on this guy, you can change the vignette color. Again, that's kind of cool for special effects, but in general, a vignette has just a fade to a darker, like a gray or a black. In general, you don't use unless you're going for that, like a brown or a yellow or some other color like that. So I'm just going to hit OK. And I think we're done. Filter, vignette. Yeah, again, you can check out some of these other things over here. Take a look at what they do. And again, experiment. Have fun. When you're done, what you want to do is, I believe you go over here to File and then Save. Okay, there you go. And then I always like to change the name of the file that is going to come out just so it doesn't overwrite the first one. So on here, I'll say B. Okay, and here are some sliders you can change. JPEG in general is probably what you want. You can put it in some of these other formats. Some of them are larger in file size than others, but JPEG in general is good. And then the quality, notice this right here. And by the way, this was a smaller picture to start off with. I didn't even start off with a full size, so it was already a smaller file size. And this one's really tiny, 77 kilobytes. Now, if I put the slider all the way to the right, you'll notice it went up to 405 kilohertz, which is still pretty small. But if I say, oh my gosh, it's huge, let's say it's, I don't know, 8 megapixels or something really large, and it takes a long time for it to go through your email, then just slide the slider over to a number, and it will automatically, it decreases the quality, and if you don't go way too far over here, it decreases it subtly enough so it's not too bad. But if you do decrease it way over here and you want it super tiny, you will start to notice artifacts. Again, if you're not printing it and if it's just going up on Facebook or it's going through some email, that's okay. Today I'm going to leave it up at, I don't know, 74. Okay, so I'm going to hit OK with that name. And then it's going to ask where I want it, and I'm going to leave it. I'm going to put it in the same folders where I started, except with a little B at the end. I'm going to hit save, and you're done. So now you know how to use a free online tool, Pixlr, in order to crop, straighten, change some of the saturation, some of the sharpness, put a little nice vignette on it to any picture that you have. Once again, it's a great tool. I mean, you could be over at somebody else's house using their computer or someplace, and you say, oh, I just want to edit this really quick. It's a great tool to have. And if you don't have the funds right now to pay for something that can be quite expensive, like Photoshop, Lightroom, or some of the other editing software, this is a great tool to start off with. Once you learn some of these skills, by the way, you'll be able to apply them to some of those other tools, because they use very much the same type of format, and it'll be really familiar. So it's a good place to practice. Okay, hope that was helpful. So go check it out, and make sure that you go check out pocketlenses.com for any more instructional videos and things to help you learn to take great photos with your point and shoot or pocket or compact camera.